School starts here in Florida in just a few days. The buses will roll, parents will take the first day pictures, teachers will get their rooms ready, children will walk back in the classroom with backpacks and new shoes and big hopes and all the challenges they carried out last May. And right now, on schedule, we're going to hear from the same cries from politicians and activists and school boards, unions, parents, and people who have not set foot in a classroom since they were students themselves. Just pay the teachers more. Now, what this comes from is that in my county, there is a proposal to build teacher housing. Kind of in the same way that in places like Aspen, Colorado, they have to build employee housing, right? Um, and the comments are simple, like, well, if they just paid them a living wage, I hate that phrase, living wage. If they just paid them a living wage, they wouldn't have to do that. Now, let me say something before all the angry comments happen, because they're going to. There are teachers. I spent 15 years teaching. Uh, there are teachers out there who deserve more money, no doubt. I could name names. They don't want me to, but I could name names. Again, spent 15 years working in the school system. Saw teachers who were phenomenally exceptional. They showed up early, they stayed late, they knew their subject, they knew their students, they called parents, they planned, they graded, they kept learning going. They treated all the students as if they were all valuable. They were amazing. And unless you knew what they were teaching, if you just looked in the classroom, their classroom management was so good, you couldn't tell. You couldn't tell if it was a college algebra class or a basic math class, because the kids were acting in the very same way. Some of them were amazing, absolutely amazing. You know, so with kids were dealing with discipline problems, family problems, attendance problems, paperwork, testing, changing rule, all that stuff, all that nonsense. And in the middle of all of that, these people taught children. Those children, those teachers rather, deserve more money. They just do. But on the other hand, I saw teachers who had checked out. Teachers who just did just enough not to get fired. Although, and how hard is it to get fired? Teachers who blamed every child. They just don't want to do anything. The parents, and every parents just don't care. All the administrators, they don't care. They don't do anything. Oh, this policy is stupid. Why are we taking this test? All these other teachers don't do it. They blamed everybody. And they never once looked in the mirror. I saw teachers who should have made another life choice 10 years earlier. Some of them 20 years earlier. So that's why I have a problem with just pay teachers more. Because more money for who? Based on what? And what are the taxpayers buying? Now, these are not mean questions. They're grown-up questions, right? Florida has worked hard to increase teacher starting pay, because that's the thing that makes the headline, right? The average starting teacher salary in Florida is now roughly around $49,400. That's much better than it was just a few years ago. So if you're a young teacher, a new graduate, somebody looking to enter the profession, that number is important. But here's the question nobody wants to ask. What happens after the first year? Florida's overall average teacher salary is only about $56,700. Now that tells us something important. We've done a better job at raising the floor than we have at building a meaningful career ladder. A reasonable statewide estimate, and this is just the estimate, puts teachers with around 5 years of experience at about $52,000. Now, that's not an official salary schedule for every teacher in every Florida district, because some districts pay more. For Hillsborough, it's not like Miami-Dade, and Miami-Dade is not like Orange, or Orange County is not like a rural district in the Panhandle like Bay County. Okay, but it gives us sort of a picture that we can deal with. So around year 5, a Florida teacher may be earning about $52,000. A median full-time year-round worker in Florida makes about $53,800. Think about that. Median. Median is not average, but it's around the middle, right? So a 5-year teacher makes about $52,000. A full-time, year-round worker, and that's important, makes about 53. So it's similar, really. Okay. Now a teacher has made it past those first years. I'm gonna tell you, that teacher has learned how to control the classroom. Hopefully, the teacher has learned how to deal with parents, lesson plans, and student behavior, grading, faculty meetings. I hated faculty meetings so much. And the reality that no education college course fully prepared them for. And after 5 years, that teacher may still be making less than a typical full-time worker in Florida. Not by much, but still. And that's kind of a problem. But before we run away with that conclusion, we have to be honest about something else. Teachers have benefits. Here in Hillsborough and districts across Florida, teachers receive health coverage, retirement benefits, paid leave, and other forms of compensation that have real value. Now that matters. We can't just discard that like it doesn't matter. So a teacher's real compensation is more than the line marked salary on a paycheck. If the district pays a significant share of health insurance, that's compensation. Now remember, I said a little bit ago, we're having an adult conversation here, having a real live adult conversation. So if the district contributes towards retirement, that's compensation. If there's paid life insurance, disability coverage, sick leave, and other benefits, that's compensation, and we have to count it. But cash salary is still cash salary, because you can't pay the mortgage with a pension promised 30 years from now and get it. You can't buy groceries with an employee health contribution. You can't make a car payment by telling the bank you have a decent dental plan. I get it. Benefits matter, and salary matters. Both things can be true at the same time. So let's run a serious hypothetical, because that's all we can do now. Let's stop pretending that a 2% raise or a one-time bonus is a grand act of leadership. What if Florida gave every teacher a real, visible, across-the-board raise of, say, 20%? Huh? 20%. 20%. Now we're talking, right? That would take the average starting salary from about $49,400 to more than $59,000. That would take the estimated, and then this is an estimated number, obviously, fifth-year teacher salary from about $52,000 to about $62,400. It would take the Florida average teacher salary from about $56,700 to nearly $68,000 as an average salary. That's a 20% raise. That's a sizable increase. You would see that in a paycheck. And because Florida doesn't have a state income tax, teachers would keep more of that raise than they would in some other states. But let's not act like the IRS has gone out of business, though, all right? On an increase of about $10,400, there would be more federal income tax. There'd be more Social Security tax. There'd be more Medicare tax. So for a typical teacher, that $10,400 raise might turn into something closer to about $8,300 in added take-home pay. Not chicken feed. And of course, it depends on their filing status and your kids and deductions, retirement contributions, and all that other stuff, right? But still, that's real money. As we used to say, that's cheddar for the rat, right? That's money for a better apartment, a car payment, pay down debt, for a teacher who has a young family. That's money that makes a good teacher think twice about leaving the profession. Now, and after that 20% raise now we're talking about, the estimated fifth-year salary teacher would be making around $62,400, roughly $8,600 above the typical full-time worker in Florida. So if the question is, what Would a real 20% raise make a difference? The answer is yeah, certainly. But again, because we're having a conversation with adults, with grown-ups, right? Are you grown-ups? I'm grown up. What's that going to cost? Now, Florida has about 172,000 public school teachers. A 20% increase in teacher salary only would add roughly $1.95 billion in salary cost alone. So once you add the district's additional payroll taxes and the salary-linked retirement costs, you are talking about more than $2 billion a year. Not one time. So don't get crazy. Don't try to compare it to the Ray Stadium. That's bad enough. But it'd be $2 billion every year. Not once. Not every press release. Not a campaign promise, but every year. Now, I'm not saying Florida couldn't do it. Florida's a big state. Florida makes big choices. We spend billions on things that we decide are important. And if the state decided that raising teacher salary pay by 20% was a priority, then the money probably could be found. But don't tell me it's a small decision, because it's not. And when taxpayers are being asked to put another $2 billion with a B dollars in the system every year, taxpayers have every right to ask, what are they getting for it? Are we buying better teachers? Are we keeping great teachers from leaving? Are we attracting strong math teachers, science teachers, special ed teachers, reading teachers willing to work with the schools with the greatest needs? Are we reducing class sizes? Reading scores, are they getting better? Are we making schools safer and more orderly? Or are we simply putting 20% more money into every adult paycheck and hoping that the system gets better by magic? That's the question. Because paying every teacher 20% more is not the same thing as 20% better teaching. Now, and that's the part that makes a lot of folks uncomfortable. Some people hear any question about teacher effectiveness and immediately say, you hate teachers. No, I don't hate teachers. I have too much respect for good teachers to pretend that performance doesn't matter. Because we don't say every doctor should make exactly the same amount of money, regardless of skills or results, specialty or effort. That somehow the foot doctor should make bit as much money as the cardiologist or the neuroscience, the brain doctor, right? We don't say that every lawyer should make the same amount of money. We don't say that every salesperson or engineer, contractor, nurse, musician, business owner should all make the same money simply because they have been around the same number of years. We don't say that. But in education, we often act as if years served is a main proof of value. It is not. Experience does matter, of course. Of course it does. A teacher in year 15 should usually know more than somebody in year 1. I did. But we all know that time on the job is not the same as excellence on the job. There are first-year teachers who are already tremendous. It's their gifting. There are veteran teachers who are still growing, learning, getting better, still pouring themselves into kids. And there are people who've been in the classroom for 20 years who are simply just going through the motions. They're just trying to get through their drop. And I'm going to tell you, the kids know the difference. And the parents of those kids know the difference. Other teachers in the building know the difference. The administrators, they know. And taxpayers paying the bill should have the right to know the difference too. So here's where I stand. Okay. I don't oppose teachers making more. I support paying good teachers more. I support paying teachers in hard to staff subjects more. I support paying teachers who take on difficult assignments more. I support paying teachers who produce real student growth more. Move the bottom quartile. That's what we were always told. I support paying teachers who mentor young teachers more. I support paying teachers who are willing to go where they are needed the most more. And yes, I support a stronger salary floor that makes teaching financially realistic for very talented people who might otherwise choose something else. But I'm not willing to write a blank check to a system that too often cannot reward, I should say not cannot, but will not reward excellence, will not identify failure honestly, and will not move chronically ineffective adults out of classrooms where teachers are losing precious years. Now, if Florida was going to spend another $2 billion every year on teacher pay, then we need to deal with the taxpayers. We need a deal, a real deal. We raise compensation substantially. We respect the profession. We stop pretending that teachers should have to live on applause, apples, and tote bags. Okay? But in return, we build a system that rewards excellence. We identify real results. We pay for hard work and difficult assignments. We give parents confidence that their children are being taught by capable adults. And we stop protecting people who are not suited to teach. That's not anti-teacher. That's pro-good teacher. And more importantly, it's pro-child. Because the child sitting in the back row does not get that school year back. The child who misses reading in the 3rd grade does not get a press rewind. The child who spends a year in a classroom with someone who has checked out pays a price long after the adults have moved on. My own personal situation when I was in 3rd grade, I think that my teacher had a drinking problem. A lot of us got very little in 3rd grade. Very little. We didn't get, and everybody got promoted. We can't get that back. Show me the money? Fine. Show me the money for great teaching. Show me the money for teachers who make a difference. Show me the money for the people who want every parent praying their child gets this year. But when we ask taxpayers to spend billions more, don't ask them to suspend judgment. Don't ask them to ignore results. And don't ask them to pretend that every teacher has earned the same reward. Because every good teacher knows that's not true. I'm Willie Lawson. This is the Morning Report. Till we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, take care of yourself. We'll see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.